Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Talks with Walt. We are now turning in our Talks with Walt, our reading of the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass, to the section called Children of Adam. I Sing the Body Electric is the title of this poem. We are now in section number 4. Now, I love that we can read a little passage like this because there are critiquers of Leaves of Grass that say, now, see, this is a section in Sing the Body Electric that's kind of a waste, it's repetitive, it's not that useful. And I'm going to make the argument, no, I think this is one of the more important passages of all of I Sing the Body Electric. I hope I can make that argument for you. Now, my assumption is that you've been with us at LearnStrong.net. Down the left-hand side, Talks with Walt's our playlist. And I hope that you've been with us all the way through the inscriptions and starting from Pomenoc readings as well as all of the lectures over every one of the 52 poems of Song of Myself, as well as all of the Children of Adam poems up to this point, as well as I Sing the Body Electric sections 1, 2, and 3. Certainly the introduction I hope that you have some familiarity with as well. Now before I read this passage, or maybe in some combination with my reading this passage, I want us to take a look at Song of Myself passage number 2. I just want to remind you of that really brilliant passage, of Song of Myself passage number 2. If you have your own edition, I hope you'll look back. Do you remember these lines? Houses and rooms are full of perfumes. The shelves are crowded with perfumes. I breathe the fragrance myself and know it and like it. Notice the use of the word like. We'll come back to it. The distillation would intoxicate me also, but I shall not let it. The atmosphere is not a perfume. It has no taste of the distillation. It's odorless. It's for my mouth forever. I'm in love with it. I'll go to the bank of the wood, become undisguised and naked. I am mad for it to be in contact with me. The smoke of my own breath. Echoes, ripples, buzzed, whispers, love root, silk thread, crotch and vine, my respiration and inspiration, the beating of my heart, the passing of the blood in the air through my lungs, the sniff of green leaves and dry leaves and the shore and dark-colored sea rocks and of hay in the barn, the sound of the belched words of my voice loose to the eddies of the wind, a few light kisses, a few embraces, a reaching round of arms, the play of shine and shade on the trees as the supple boughs wag, the delight of loner in the rush of the streets or along the fields or hillsides, the feeling of health, the full noon trill, the song of me rising from bed and meeting the sun. Now, do you remember these great lines? We obviously explicated these earlier. Have you reckoned 1,000 acres much? Have you reckoned the earth much? Have you practiced so long to learn to read? It's an interesting line given where we are now in Leaves of Grass. Have you felt so proud to get at the meaning of poems? Stop this day and night with me, and you shall possess the origin of all poems. You shall possess the good of the earth and sun. There are millions of suns left. You shall no longer take things at second or third hand, nor look through the eyes of the dead, nor feed on the specters in books. You shall not look through my eyes either, nor take things from me. You shall listen to all sides and filter them from yourself. I think that Whitman is returning back to a set of lines like this in passage 4 of I Sing the Body Electric. He says it this way. I perceived that to be with those I like is enough. To stop in company with the rest at evening is enough. To be surrounded by beautiful, curious, breathing, laughing flesh is enough. To pass among them or touch anyone or rest my arm ever so lightly round his or her neck for a moment, what is this then? I do not ask any more delight. I swim in it as in a sea. There is something in staying close to men and women and looking on them and in the contact and odor of them that pleases the soul. Well, all things please the soul, but these please the soul well. Now, you'll remember in our study of Thoreau's Walden that he says in passage 2, I went to the woods because I wish to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of nature, right? That idea of the essentials, what is it that's really necessary? Whitman's going to pause and he's going to tell us, I'll tell you what I think is the most important, and he begins with perspicacity, insight. He says, I have perceived, understood, right? That to be with those notice he doesn't say I love, he says I like. Go back to passage 2 and see how he uses the word like there. That I like is enough. Notice the repetition 3 times of the word enough. That is to say, from Thoreau's perspective, what is essential? To stop in company with the rest at evening is enough. Makes us think about I Hear America Singing. To be surrounded by beautiful, curious. I told you, he loves this word curious. If there's one thing that you can learn as a student, that you can take away as a student from your reading of Lisa Grass, it's this. Never lose your sense of curiosity, of wonder, of awe. Why? Because it leads to humility, of course. And the only wisdom we can hope to acquire is the wisdom of humility, is what T.S. Eliot tells us, of course, in that second of the four quartets. He's Coker, right? Curious, breathing, laughing flesh. Again, the emphasizing of flesh is enough, the third enough, right? To pass among them, that is to say, the people, or touch. We were back to touching in passage 3 with the patriarch, right? Or touch anyone, or rest my arm ever so lightly round his or her neck for a moment. What is this then? I love the rhetorical question, the idea of having your arm around. I mean, it's a fun question. Who are the people in your life that you love to put your arm around, or both arms around? And those people, Whitman says, oh, those are the best people. That's all that you need. He says, there is something in staying close. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the line. I do not ask any more delight. This is enough. I swim in it as in a sea. Again, I told you, the swimming metaphor is a powerful one for Whitman. He loved to bathe or swim in the ocean himself. He says, this is all I need. All I need is to be with people I can put my arm around and I can, let them know that I care for them. He says, there is something in staying close to men and women and looking, notice we're back to perceived in the opening line, and looking on them, and in the contact and odor of them that pleases the soul well. We'll come back to pleasing the soul well in the final line. Hey, do you remember this from passage number 24 of Song of Myself? I believe in the flesh, and the appetite, seeing, hearing, feeling are miracles, and each part and tag of me is a miracle. Divine am I inside and out, and make holy whatever I touch or am touched from. The scent of these armpits, aroma finer than prayer. This head more than churches, Bibles, and all the creeds. Go back to the line. He says, there's something in staying close to men and women and looking on them and in the contact and odor of them that pleases the soul well. He loves the smell of other people. What an amazing insight. And it's fascinating to think of the ways that we define who we like to be with by their odor. I once had a student that said, it's so true, because when I was a kid, walked into my grandma's house, the first thing I could always identify was that smell, that odor of that house, and the smell of her as well. And there's something comforting about that. He says, that pleases the soul well. All things please the soul, he says. In other words, the ability, as the great Stoic Marcus Aurelius said, to be in love with everything that happens in your life, even the most terrible things, to say, no, I choose this, I will learn from this, not why did this happen to me, but why did this happen for me. All pleases the soul, all things please the soul, but these please the soul well, essentially, in other words. In other words, there are things that matter the most, and what are those things? To be with others, the smell of others, the contact with others. I sing the body electric now is not just the physical body, but the group of bodies, right? That is to say, the thing that defines Americans as Americans for Walt Whitman is we love to be with each other. Now, of course, the irony of all ironies is that by 67, we've already fought a war where we've killed each other in the thousands and tens of thousands because of the rage that we have towards each other. And yet, Whitman is a great believer in the adhesiveness of the body of all Americans together. In other words, it's going to take a lot to tear us apart. 4 years of a war couldn't even do it. This was his hope as he articulates it through Leaves of Grass. Of course, let's finish now at 2a. The most amazing things are usually the simple things, right? These are the essential things. At 2b, I love the echoes from Song of Myself, passage 2 and 24, as I shared them with you. At 3a, well, I mentioned Thoreau, and I think Thoreau is very much standing behind some of the lines like this. I went to the woods because I wanted to front the essentials, right? That is to say, what matters most. And finally, at 3b, Well, what is it that pleases your soul well? What are your essentials? And maybe even more interestingly, who do you like to smell? Who do you like to put your arm around their shoulder and tell them that you love them? Tell them that you enjoy being with them. Those are the people that make your life and my life meaningful. And of course, from here now, we're ready to march in to passage 5, 6, 7, and 8, which will be some of the most controversial sets of lines ever written in Leaves of Grass. We'll come back to talk about why that's the case. Thank you. I hope you're enjoying this.